Hey guys, tonight we're going to journey back in time, to an era when words held a weight and depth that often eludes us now. Imagine the warm glow of oil lamps flickering in an ancient tent, the scent of dust and spices hanging in the air, as storytellers wove tales that shaped entire civilizations. You're there, nestled on a worn rug, listening intently, utterly captivated. You might even find yourself on a camel, traversing sun-baked dunes, or perhaps standing amidst bustling market stalls, the cries of vendors echoing around you. Just a little heads up, exploring these ancient concepts might just make your modern understanding of right and wrong feel, well, a little less certain. May peace rest upon your heart tonight. This quiet hour, just before dawn breaks, is perfect for unraveling some old mysteries. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Most people, you included perhaps, probably assume the Bible has a lot to say about how messed up humans are. And you wouldn't be wrong, it's certainly true that there's a significant focus on human imperfection within its pages. What's also true, and often overlooked, is that the Bible's actual vocabulary about this topic, words like sin, iniquity, or transgression, can sound a bit odd, even arcane, to modern ears. Because of this linguistic disconnect, the biblical perspective on the human condition is often either ignored entirely or, worse, dismissed as ancient and backwards, a relic of a less enlightened age. And truly, this is really unfortunate. Because, buried within these seemingly peculiar terms, the biblical authors are actually offering us a deeply profound, almost clinical, diagnosis of human nature. Consider iniquity, for instance. It describes behavior that is inherently crooked, twisted, like a path that deviates wildly from its intended course. Then there's transgression, which refers to the breaking of trust, a betrayal of a bond or an agreement. But the word that pops up most frequently, the most common of these so-called bad words in the Bible, is sin. So, tonight, let's pull back the curtain on this one for a few minutes, shall we? Sin translates two primary words from the original biblical languages, the Hebrew word kata and the Greek word hamartia. And here's where it gets truly fascinating, the most basic, foundational meaning of sin isn't religious at all. It's not about fiery brimstone or eternal damnation in its most fundamental sense. No, kata simply means to fail or, more precisely, to miss the goal. Imagine, if you will, the ancient Israelite tribe of Benjamin. They were renowned throughout the region for their military prowess, particularly their slingers. We're talking about a small army of slingshot experts, so incredibly skilled that they could sling a stone at a single hair and not kata, that is, they wouldn't fail or miss their impossibly tiny target. Now, that's precision, isn't it? Their aim was true, their focus unwavering. They hit the mark. Or consider a more mundane, relatable example from ancient wisdom literature. There's a biblical proverb that warns against making hasty decisions. Why? Because if you rush into things without proper thought, you are likely to kata your way, you'll miss your destination, stumble off course, and end up somewhere you never intended to be. So, in the Bible, at its core, sin is a failure to fulfill a goal. It's an archery metaphor, really, an arrow shot, but it doesn't land where it was supposed to. Now, this naturally begs the question, doesn't it? What is the goal? What mark are we supposed to be hitting? Well, you don't have to turn many pages in the Bible to find the answer. On page 1, in the very first chapter of Genesis, we encounter a radical idea that sets the stage for everything that follows. We learn that every single human being is an image of God, a sacred being who represents the Creator himself and, by extension, is inherently worthy of profound respect and honor. Historians still argue whether this concept of universal human dignity was truly unique to ancient Israel or if echoes of it could be found in other contemporaneous cultures, but its prominence here is undeniable. It's a foundational truth, a bedrock principle that transforms how you view yourself and everyone around you. In this way of seeing the world, then, sin isn't just breaking some arbitrary rule. It's a failure to love God and, crucially, a failure to love others by not treating them with the honor and dignity they inherently deserve. You can see this profound, interconnected idea woven throughout the most famous code of conduct ever given to the Israelites, the Ten Commandments. Think about it, roughly half of them identify ways you can fail at loving God. You shouldn't have other gods before him, you shouldn't misuse his name, you should keep the Sabbath holy. These are all about your vertical relationship. And then, the other half names ways you can fail at loving people: don't murder, don't steal, don't bear false witness, honor your parents. These are about your horizontal relationships. The sheer fact that both kinds of failure to honor God and failure to honor people, are combined in this foundational text shows just how deeply connected they are. It emphasizes that failing to honor God is inextricably linked to failing to honor people. This is precisely why, in the Bible, a sin against people is ultimately understood as a sin against God himself. Take the fascinating story of Joseph in ancient Egypt. When he's propositioned by Potiphar's wife, he famously refuses, declaring, "How could I do such a great wickedness and sin against God?" In Joseph's mind, the act of failing to honor a human being, a person made in God's image, was a direct failure to love and honor God himself. It wasn't merely a social transgression, it was a cosmic one. This peculiar tidbit, that sexual immorality was considered a sin against God primarily because it dishonored a person made in God's image, rather than just a moral rule, highlights the deep theological underpinning. So, when we look at the Hebrew word kata, we're seeing that sin is a failure to be truly human, a failure to live up to our intended purpose as image bearers of the divine. But there's an even deeper, more fascinating layer to this idea. The truly mind-bending thing about sin in the Bible is that most of the time people are failing, they either don't even know it, or, and this is arguably even worse, they genuinely believe they are succeeding. It's like hitting the bullseye in your own mind, while the arrow is actually miles off target. Consider the classic example of Pharaoh, the powerful ruler of ancient Egypt. In his worldview, he wanted to build Egypt's economy, strengthen its infrastructure, and protect national security. Perfectly reasonable goals, right? He believed, with every fiber of his being, that these were good and necessary objectives. In his mind, this noble ambition absolutely justified enslaving the Israelites. He saw it not as an act of oppression, but as a strategic, even benevolent, measure to secure his nation's future. He thought it was good. He was, to put it mildly, totally unaware that it was an epic, catastrophic fail, a fundamental kata against beings made in the very image of the God he was unknowingly resisting. This historical event, the enslavement of a people for economic gain, has played out countless times throughout history, from the Roman Empire's reliance on slave labor to various colonial enterprises in the modern era, each often justified by the perceived success of the ruling power. Or think about King Saul, the first king of Israel. You remember how he tirelessly chased David around the wilderness, determined to kill him. Saul genuinely believed he was bringing a criminal to justice, defending his throne and the stability of the kingdom. He was convinced he was doing the right thing, fulfilling his duty. Until, that is, he had a moment of startling clarity, a profound realization that he was, in fact, the corrupt one, the one who had truly failed. It was then that he uttered those chilling words, "I have sinned, I am the failure." This wasn't just an admission of guilt, it was a recognition of his own profound self-deception. So, you see, sin is about more than just doing bad things in a malicious, intentional way. It describes this pervasive, almost uncanny human tendency to easily deceive ourselves, to spin elaborate illusions, to redefine our bad decisions, our failures to love God and others, as perfectly good, even noble, ones. It's our internal spin doctor working overtime, crafting narratives that paint us in the best possible light, even when we're fundamentally off course. This leads us to a truly crucial question: why are humans such remarkably bad judges between moral failure and success? Why do we so readily fall prey to this self-deception? The very first appearance of the word sin in the Bible offers a profound, almost terrifying insight. The story is an ancient one, known to many, two brothers, Cain and Abel. Their parents, Adam and Eve, had just given into this beastly temptation, this primal urge, to redefine good and evil by their own wisdom, rather than adhering to the established order. Now, Cain is faced with a similar, agonizing choice. He's consumed by jealousy and anger because God has favored his brother Abel's offering. And here, God issues a stark warning, a truly chilling image: if you don't choose what's good, kata is crouching at the door. It wants you, but you can rule over it. In these ancient stories, sin, or moral failure, isn't just a misstep or a mistake. It's depicted as a wild, hungry animal, a predatory beast literally crouching at the threshold of your heart, ready to pounce, to consume you whole. It's a vivid, visceral image of a force that wants to take control, to devour your better judgment. We, of course, know how that story ends, tragically. Cain does not rule over the beast. And the Bible is trying to tell us something incredibly profound through this narrative, that our failed human behavior, our alarming tendency towards self-deception, it runs deep. It's not just a superficial flaw or a bad habit. It is rooted in our deepest desires and selfish urges, those primal instincts that compel us to act primarily for our own benefit, often at the direct expense of others. It's a powerful, almost magnetic pull towards self-interest. Historians still debate the precise socio-cultural implications of such narratives in ancient Near Eastern societies, wondering if they were meant as allegories for tribal conflicts or universal human struggles. But the message about human nature remains stark. This deep-seated impulse, this kata, leads to a relentless chain reaction of relational breakdown. You see it play out in families, in communities, between nations. It's the source of so much pain and division. This is why, in the New Testament, the Apostle Paul, a figure whose own struggles with this internal beast are well documented, describes hamartia, the Greek equivalent of kata, as a power or even a force that rules humans. In his stark, almost desperate words, we are slaves to sin. He even laments, in a passage that has echoed through centuries of human experience, sin lives in me so that the things I don't want to do, that's what I do. It's a confession of internal conflict, a battle raging within the human heart where intentions clash with actions. It's the nagging feeling that you know what's right, but somehow, you just can't bring yourself to do it. So, with the word sin, the biblical authors aren't just giving us a quaint religious term, they're offering a robust, unflinching description of the human condition itself. It's a diagnosis that resonates even today, thousands of years later. First and foremost, it's a failure to be fully human, a failure to live up to our divine blueprint as beings who were made to love God and others with unwavering honor. It's our inability to truly judge whether we are succeeding or profoundly failing in this fundamental task. And perhaps most disturbingly, it's that deep, selfish impulse, that wild animal crouching at the door, that drives much of our behavior, often compelling us to act for our own perceived benefit at the expense of genuine connection and care for others. Let's be honest with ourselves for a moment. This isn't exactly a pretty picture of humanity, is it? It's not the kind of self-portrait you'd hang proudly in your mental gallery. But if we are truly honest, if we strip away the layers of ego and self-justification, it is remarkably realistic. You can see it in every news cycle, every historical account of conflict, every moment of personal struggle. This deep-seated propensity to miss the mark, to prioritize ourselves, to deceive ourselves into believing our failures are successes, is undeniably part of the human experience. Throughout history, from the power struggles of ancient kings to the seemingly minor squabbles in a modern office, the patterns of self-deception and self-interest are strikingly consistent. The Byzantine Empire, for instance, often collapsed into internal strife and corruption despite its grand aspirations, illustrating this persistent human tendency to fail even in seemingly successful endeavors. This is precisely why, in the Bible, the story of Jesus is presented as such profoundly good news. Because if this deeply flawed, self-deceiving, missing the mark, human condition is the problem, then Jesus is depicted as the ultimate answer. He is portrayed as the Creator stepping into human form, becoming the truly human one, the one who did not kata. He did not fail to love God with all his being, and he did not fail to love others with the honor and respect they deserved. That is to say, in the biblical narrative, he did not sin. He was the arrow that flew straight, the one who hit the bullseye of true humanity. This stands in stark contrast to King Saul, who, though initially chosen by God, eventually succumbed to his own self-deception, ultimately failing to hit the mark. And yet, here's the paradox, the truly astonishing twist in the story: though he himself did not fail, he took responsibility for humanity's entire history of failure. He lived for others, a life defined by radical self-giving love, and he died for humanity's collective sin, for their failures, their inability to love, their self-deception. He embraced the consequences of a world that missed the mark. And then, the story continues, he was raised from the dead, not just to prove a point, but to offer humanity the gift of his own perfectly lived life. It's a life that, in the biblical narrative, covers for their failures, fills in their gaps, and provides the path to becoming truly human themselves. This quirky concept of one person's perfect life atoning for the collective failures of many is unique to this particular narrative, setting it apart from many other ancient spiritual traditions. Or, to echo the powerful words of the apostles, Those who followed him and sought to explain his significance, he committed no sin, yet he carried our sins in his body on the cross so that we might die to our sins and live to do what is right. It's a profound idea of substitution and transformation. It suggests that by embracing his path, you are offered a way to shed that old skin of self-deception and self-interest, to escape the grip of that crouching beast, and to finally align your aim with the true goal, to live a life that genuinely loves God and genuinely loves others. That, my friends, is the rich, layered, and often surprising story behind the biblical word for sin. It's not just a religious scolding, it's a deep, introspective look at the human heart, and a hopeful declaration about what's possible. Now, as the world settles into its quiet rhythm, and the echoes of ancient stories fade into the stillness of the night, allow your mind to gently unwind. Imagine those skilled Benjamite slingers, their stones finding their mark with effortless precision, a beautiful metaphor for a life lived truly, hitting the goal. Let the complexities of history and language soften, dissolving into the gentle hum of your own breath. You are carried now by still waters. The striving, the seeking, the occasional missing of the mark, all of it can rest. The weight of understanding, the effort of absorbing these profound ideas, can now dissipate. This night was made for rest. Simply allow your thoughts to drift, like leaves on a slow-moving stream, carried onward by an unseen current. There's no need to grasp, no need to hold tight. Just peace. And he shall give his beloved sleep.